Picture this, it is 0300 hours, somewhere in the Philippine Sea. The anemometer on the USS Gerald R. Ford's Island reads 157 miles per hour. Category 5 hurricane. The same wind speed that turned entire Florida neighborhoods into splinters. The ocean is not water anymore. It is a living, thrashing monster. Waves crest at 50 feet, a 5-story building of salt water, slamming into the bow every 12 seconds. The flight deck pitches up, then drops, like an elevator with a cut cable. All 100,000 tons of American steel groan under the punishment. For any other Navy on Earth, this is the moment you run. You lash down the aircraft, you secure for heavy weather, and pray the storm passes. But for the United States Navy, the question is not, can we survive this? The question is, can we launch aircraft on the violent edge of this hell? Here is what nobody tells you. When the plan's Leoning, or Russia's Admiral Kuznetsov encounters Sea State 7, they become floating museums. Their jets stay chained. The storm wins. When a U.S. Navy supercarrier hits the same conditions, something different happens. The air boss doesn't cancel flight ops. He calculates them. The LSO rigs the backup system and prepares to talk pilots down through zero visibility, using nothing but a hand controller and nerves of steel. This $13 billion of nuclear-powered defiance. This is why America owns the oceans when the weather turns hostile. And this is why adversaries who think a typhoon will protect them are making a fatal miscalculation. If you believe American engineering can defy nature itself, type proud in the comments right now. Today, we are breaking down the Corpen calculation that keeps the deck landable, the catapult physics that launch jets when gravity says no, and why flying in a hurricane is the ultimate strategic weapon nobody sees coming. We don't fly in the eye of the storm, we fight in the kill zones surrounding it. Sea State 7. Here is what most civilians do not realize. The flight deck is not a runway. It is a runway that is actively trying to kill you. In Sea State 7, the deck becomes a 6th degree of freedom nightmare. It pitches up and down. It rolls side to side. It heaves vertically, all simultaneously, in chaotic patterns dictated by 50-foot waves. The bridge crew has exactly one tool to fight this chaos: speed. Most ships slow down in a storm to avoid structural damage. Aircraft carriers do the opposite. They accelerate to 30 knots and drive into the gale. Why? Because hydrodynamic stability increases with velocity. The faster the hull moves, the more the ship's momentum resists the ocean's attempt to throw it sideways. Sounds complicated? It is. But here is the cheat code. The captain must solve the Corpen problem. The Corpen is the ship's true heading during flight operations. To recover aircraft, you need 25 to 30 knots of wind, blowing down the angled deck, wind over deck. It reduces the aircraft's ground speed at touchdown. But if you steer directly into the wind to maximize WOD, you expose the ship to resonant pitching. If the pitch angle exceeds 5 degrees, landing becomes physically impossible. So the captain trades stability. He turns the ship at an angle to the wind, accepting a crosswind on the deck in exchange for damping the pitch. The quartering sea solution. It introduces roll, but roll is survivable. Uncontrolled pitch is not. Think of it like driving a car over a massive speed bump. If you hit it head-on at high speed, you fly. But if you drive over it diagonally, the ride is smoother. The captain is effectively drifting, a 100,000-ton ship, over a speed bump made of water. Think about that for a second. The bridge crew is conducting an invisible duel with fluid dynamics, using heading and speed as weapons, to carve out a 15-second window where the deck is stable enough for a jet to hit a 3-wire. And every 12 seconds, the ocean resets the fight. This is the war before the war. a fight that only nuclear-powered supercarriers have the endurance to win. But the real nightmare? That's happening on the Catapult track. Let's talk about why Stobar carriers become paperweights. In the same storm where the Ford keeps fighting, China's Li Aoning and Shandong use the ski jump design. Russia's Admiral Kuznetsov employs the same system. Short takeoff, but arrested recovery. They rely on a curved ramp at the bow to launch fighters. Here is the fatal flaw. The ski jump depends entirely on the ship's deck angle. The jet accelerates under its own power, hits the ramp, and jumps into the air. But in Sea State 7, physics becomes the enemy. When a 50-foot wave slams the bow, the ship pitches down. Hard. The bow drops 20 feet in 2 seconds. What was a 14-degree launch angle becomes a 4-degree angle, or worse, a downward slope. The fighter leaves the deck with insufficient upward velocity. Gravity wins. The jet settles off the bow and impacts the ocean at 140 knots. This is not theoretical. Unconfirmed reports suggest adversaries relying on ski jumps have experienced crashes in moderate seas due to this exact dynamic. Now, here is where American engineering changes the game. The US employs Catapult, assisted takeoff, but arrested recovery. It is simple physics. A ski jump is like a skateboard ramp. You need speed in the right angle. A catapult is like a giant slingshot. It doesn't care about the angle. When you let go, the rock flies. The FA-18 Super Hornet does not rely on the ship's angle. The catapult accelerates the jet from 0 to 165 knots in 310 feet, using steam pressure or electromagnetic force. Here is how it works. The nose gear locks into the shuttle. Behind it, a calibrated steel piece called the holdback bar restrains the aircraft against the engine's full power. The pilot advances the throttles to maximum thrust. The engines scream. The holdback bar absorbs tens of thousands of pounds of force until it snaps. The instant it breaks, the catapult fires. When the deck pitches down during the launch stroke, the shuttle holds the nose gear locked to the track. The jet cannot fall. It is physically restrained until it reaches flying speed, regardless of what the ocean is doing. Run the numbers. A ski jump requires the deck within plus or minus 3 degrees of level. A catapult operates in pitch angles up to plus or minus 5 degrees. That difference, those 2 extra degrees, is the difference between 0 sorties and 40 missions per day. This is not about national pride. This is about physics. The catapult breaks the tyranny of the ski jump's geometry. And launching is the easy part. The real test, trying to come home. It is 0200 hours. The pilot is 15 miles behind the ship, descending through the weather. Rain hammers the canopy. His fuel gauge reads 4,000 pounds. Bingo fuel, 20 minutes of flight time. Inside his helmet, he hears the landing signal officer. 3/4 of a mile. Call the ball. The pilot looks for the meatball, the optical landing system that projects a yellow light to guide him down. Tonight, it is useless. The ship is pitching so violently the gyro-stabilized platform has hit its mechanical stops. The light swings wildly. From the LSO platform, the call comes. Rig the MOVLAS. MOVLAS, manually, operated, visual, landing, aid, system. The backup, to the backup. A vertical pole with orange lights. No gyros, no computers, just a hand controller. And a human being who has to become the gyro. Imagine your Tesla's autopilot fails in blinding rain on a winding highway. You have to grab the wheel and drive manually. That is MOVLAS. The computer is dead. The human is the guidance system. The LSO, strapped to the platform to keep from being blown overboard, grips the pickle switch. A seasoned lieutenant commander with 400 carrier landings. He watches the stern heave up and down. As the deck rises, He moves the handle up, illuminating the top lights. You are high. Add power. As the deck drops into a trough, he lowers the handle. Bottom lights. You are low. Reduce power. But here is the nightmare. The deck is moving at 15 feet per second. The pilot is closing at 140 knots. The LSO has less than 1 second to process the deck motion, predict where it will be in 3 seconds, and move the handle to the correct position. If he is early, the pilot flies into the ramp. If he is late, the pilot bolters. And every bolter burns 15 minutes of fuel the pilot does not have. This is what fighting the ship actually means. Not the missiles, not the radar. This moment. A 28-year-old LSO in hurricane force wind, manually guiding a $70 million jet to a landing area the size of a tennis court. That is rising and falling like an amusement park ride. The pilot trusts the LSO with his life. The LSO trusts his training and his eyes. For 15 seconds, the fate of both men is determined by how well a human hand can track the rhythm of a storm. The jet crosses the ramp at 140 knots. The tailhook snags the 3-wire. The arresting cable screams. The pilot is slammed forward with crushing force. But he is alive. He is aboard. And behind him, 3 more jets are in the pattern, waiting for the LSO to do it again. This is a skill that only the U.S. Navy demands from its people, because we are the only Navy on Earth that expects our pilots to land in hell. So why does the U.S. Navy fly when everyone else hides? Here is the answer that changes everything. In a future Pacific conflict, the plan is counting on Typhoon Alley to protect them. From June to November, the Western Pacific is a graveyard of storms. Sea State 6 and 7 conditions are routine. Satellite reconnaissance becomes unreliable. Cloud cover blinds overhead surveillance. Their strategy is simple. Wait for the storm. Use it as a shield. Launch attacks when American carriers are forced to seek shelter. But that strategy is built on a false assumption. The assumption that American carriers seek shelter. They do not. When Stobar carriers are forced to port by a typhoon, the USS Ronald Reagan is flying sorties through the same storm. When adversaries are wallowing in 30-foot seas with jets lashed to the deck, the USS Harry S. Truman is launching E-2D Hawkeyes to surveil the battle space from above the weather. The E-2D is the strategic ace. It launches in Sea State 7, climbs to 25,000 feet, and paints every ship, every aircraft, every missile battery within 300 miles for 5 hours. It flies above the storm while enemy helicopters that cannot operate in winds above 40 knots remain grounded. Do the math. The side that can see wins. The side that is blind loses. In a typhoon, the U.S. Navy sees. Everyone else is flying blind. This is the hidden advantage that no amount of anti-ship missiles can neutralize. The storm, which adversaries view as a sanctuary, is actually a trap. Because when satellite feeds go dark and the weather turns hostile, the U.S. Navy does not retreat. It advances. We have spent $13 billion per carrier to ensure that bad weather is not a tactical factor. We have trained thousands of pilots to land in conditions that would terrify commercial airline captains. We have built catapults that laugh at gravity, and LSOs who manually guide jets through zero visibility approaches. Why? Because the ability to operate when no one else can is the definition of sea control. The taxpayer does not see this capability on the nightly news. No dramatic explosions, no missile intercepts, just a young LSO in the rain, a pilot trusting his voice, and a ship that refuses to yield to the ocean. But in Beijing and Moscow, they see it, and they know their weather-dependent strategies are worthless. So can a supercarrier fight in a Category 5 hurricane? The answer is, it depends on the supercarrier. If you are asking about the Liaoning or the Kuznetsov, the answer is no. The ski jump physics fail. The aircraft stay chained. the storm wins. If you are asking about the USS Gerald R. Ford or the USS Nimitz, the answer is, not only can it fight, it is designed to fight best when others cannot. This is not bravado. This is engineering reality. The Fox Corpen calculations that stabilize the hull. The Catapult that breaks free from the ski jump's limitations. The MOVLAS that allows humans to override failing computers. The E-2D that flies above the chaos while helicopters are grounded. Every system, every procedure, every piece of training is built around one unforgiving principle. American sea power does not ask permission from the weather. The storm is not an obstacle. It is an opportunity. When visibility drops to zero and satellites are blind, that is when the U.S. Navy's asymmetric advantages become impossible to counter. The enemy cannot see us. We can see them. The enemy cannot launch. We can launch. This is the $13 billion difference. Not the steel, not the reactors. The will to operate when physics says stop. The next time you see footage of a carrier steaming into a gale, bow plunging into waves, understand what you are witnessing. You are watching a sovereign airfield that refuses to acknowledge the ocean's authority. You are watching the reason America controls the seas, even when nature itself turns hostile. And to the young LSO standing in the wind and rain, manually guiding jets to the deck with nothing but a hand controller and trust, you are not just landing aircraft. You are proving that American resolve is stronger than any storm. If this breakdown of naval dominance impressed you, hit that like button and subscribe for more content about the engineering and strategy that keeps America's military unmatched. The ocean does not care about your flag. The storm does not respect your budget, but the U.S. Navy has decided that neither the ocean nor the storm gets a vote.